Keep washing the tractor. I want it clean, Gianna.
Welcome back to Who's Your Helpers. During the last episode, I dropped a little hint of what maybe we might be doing today. If you remember, we turned the tire to the high side. Based on the video description, I'm sure you figured it out by now, but today we're going to be fluid filling these tires. So a little bit off camera from yesterday, took a measurement of that tire, one of the tires on how much it weighed. Weighed 51 pounds with it completely empty. We're gonna put approximately 8 gallons, or that's the plan, of windshield washer fluid in it, and hopefully gain up to around 90 pounds or so. That's kind of my goal. Washer fluid's supposed to weigh about 7 to 8 pounds per gallon. I did measure a gallon of it on the bathroom scale yesterday, and it showed it weighed 8 pounds, but we'll see what the end tire ends up weighing. So I'm going to walk through the process. We're going to actually use my little sprayer, and I'm going to show you a detail of the setup, so come along with me. So I bought this. It's called an air to water adapter kit. It's a pretty simple little tool. It's got a garden hose fitting on one side. It's got a little burp valve as well, and then it's got a couple different adapters for which valve stem you're using it with. So I got this. I've got my little landscape sprayer, and I took the hand wand off. I put a hose barb that has a garden hose fitting, and then on top of that I used a Y at the end of that so I can Y off to a vent pipe. So my plan is the sprayer will pump up to 60 psi. I did a little test with it when I was rinsing it out. It'll go up to 60 psi, but the flow has dropped off significantly. So my plan is watch the gauge on it. When it hits 20 psi, shut the pump off, burp the air out of the tire, which will go through a hose through that Y into a bucket. So if there's any fluid there, it gets recaptured. And I'm gonna just keep doing that as we fill up the tire. I'm also gonna have to put a jack under the tractor and lift the weight off of that tire in order to make sure it doesn't go flat. There's some episodes where you see people letting them go flat, lifting them up, creates a vacuum as it expands back out. I'm not going to do that approach because I'm afraid that if I break the bead, I'll lose a lot of fluid in the process of getting it back going. So let's get started. So here's a close-up of the view. This is the line that's coming from the sprayer. This is the piece of garden hose that's going to go to my burp tank. I'm going to take the kit, open it up, and find the appropriate adapter for my valve stems. I believe it's this one, but we'll check. Actually, that looks too big. It's probably this one. So yeah, that one will fit. So we'll use that one. So first I'm going to jack the tractor up, get the weight off the tire. There, we're off. I'm going to remove the valve core. A little bit of moisture in the air. It was freezing as the pressure was dropping. I felt some little ice chunks coming out. Again, it's important to have the valve stem at the 12 o'clock position. We'll screw on the adapter onto my Y fitting of the garden hose. Okay, and then in line is open. So this one needs to stay open, the one going into the valve stem. It'll stay open all times. The one over here will shut whenever it's we're pumping fluid. Back on the sprayer, I'm going to go ahead and get it pulled over a little bit closer. Kind of get everything organized. I'm going to plug it into the 12 volt outlet of the tractor. On the BX2660s, the 650s or 2350s and 2360s, maybe even on the 70s, that plug-in's down low. On the 80s, they're up on the outlet or up in a little cubby hole. And then the key switch will have to be on. I've got the sprayer with the tongue down, and the reason for that is the suction line on it is toward the front. So I'll be able to suck a little bit more fluid out than if it was sitting flat. As far as what I'm using for fluid, it's just, well, this is Travelers. It's just a store brand, -20 washer fluid. In our area, we do get -20 here, but it's pretty few and far between when we get that cold. Plus the tractor sits in the garage all the time, and I've never seen the garage fall below about 30. So this should be fine for our application. It's not as heavy as the Beet Juice or the Rim Guard product, but definitely better than nothing. So what I'm gonna do here is dump a couple gallon in. Now, per Rim Guard's specification, they said it should hold 8.5 gallon per tire. So I bought 16, but what I'm gonna do to start here is I'm only gonna put in 5 gallons in the sprayer. We'll pump and see how far that goes, because I wanna have a good idea how much actually goes into this first tire so I know how much will go into the second. And if I don't need some of this, I don't want to open the container. It's my 5th gallon here going into the sprayer. The flow rate on this pump is 60 psi at 2.1 gallons per minute. Now obviously when you up the pressure, it's not pumping 2.1 gallons per minute. But that should kind of give us an idea. It should take maybe 10 minutes to fill the tire of total pump time. Probably 20 minutes by the time we do all the burping. As far as the burp tube goes, I'm gonna take it and run it back into the sprayer. And to start, I'm going to just start pumping fluid into the sprayer until it fills the system. When I see it coming out here, I'll know we're full. The pump just primed. I see the hose is starting to weigh down. I'm getting fluid out here. We're gonna shut off this. And I got a leak here, so I'm gonna shut the pump down for a second, and we're going to address that leak. So you can see it's leaking right here at the valve stem, just a little bit. Just try to tighten that up just a hair and see if we can't get that to stop leaking. Go ahead and shut that off. Still leaking some. I don't know where it's leaking. On the pressure gauge, we're running about 10 psi. There, that stopped the leaking. Still at 10 psi, so it's pumping fluid. Since it is got 10 psi and we're not putting any back in, it's pumping probably around 1.5 gallons per minute. It's kind of bumped up to about 12 psi at this point. So the 10 psi is just the pressure required to overcome the restriction through this fitting. So that kind of tells us that'll be a normal pressure when running. Once we start climbing up to that 20 psi, we're actually getting restriction due to the pressure it's having to overcome. So here you can see how the pressure gauge, it's kind of wiggling around a little bit. It's still pumping. Obviously we had a little bit of a leak there at start, but we've got that addressed through tightening that fitting up with a pair of pliers. I can actually hear the fluid going in the tire. You can hear it splattering in there. We have just effectively pumped out the probably 4.5 gallons. There's still a half a gallon or so in the tank. I'm going to go ahead and burp it at this time to show you that process. So I'm going to turn on this valve here. That's releasing the air pressure out of that tire. Okay. Now I'm going to put probably 3 gallons in, and that'll be the 8 gallons that I bought for this tire. And back to pumping. You can see here when we start pumping, it's a very steady 10 psi that it's running, and more and more we pump in there, it starts building that pressure. You'll start seeing that gauge jump around like in that previous clip. Starting to come up in pressure now a little bit. Got about, I don't know, 12 psi. The needle's getting a little more jumpy, so we are building some air pressure now. Okay, we're out of that. So now I'm gonna tip to the one side, suction side, suck as much as I can out. And that is effectively 8 gallons in that tire. Dump the air off. Screw from the garden hose adapter first. Remove the fitting. Install the valve core. And we're going to put some air pressure to it. And what I'm going to want to run is probably right at that 20 psi. All right, 20 psi. Put the cap back on it. And for this one, since we got it up off the ground, or I guess it feels like it's actually back maybe on the ground, I'm going to go ahead and jerk it off, and we're going to weigh it to see how we did. There, we're off. Off camera, I went ahead and broke these lug nuts loose, so it'd be a little easier to do. Well, it's definitely heavier. 116 pounds. So it was 51 when we started, and we're at 116 now. So right around 60 pounds was added. 64, 65. So that's not too bad. Kind of what I expected. 8 times 8 is 64. And so right at, math doesn't lie, right? Now to get the joy of trying to put this thing back on. Mike from Biff's Equipment, now I know what you're talking about when you're saying loaded tires are heavy. So, you know, adding 65 pounds to each tire, 130 pounds of ballast. The front axle center line to the rear axle center line is, I believe, 7 feet. And front axle center line to front edge of bucket is 5 feet. So effectively, 135 pounds is equating to about 160 pounds, I think, if my math is right. So you're offsetting a significant portion of that weight just with tires. So since we knew that we got all 8 in that last tire, I'm going to just go ahead and put all 8 here. Then we're going to do a time lapse with time so that everybody can see the total amount of time that it takes to fill one tire, and then just multiply it by 2. All right, so we're all set up now. I'm going to even try not to burp this time just to see how far it'll go. If I can get all 8 gallons in. We are going to do a time study on this, so as soon as I hit the pump, actually as soon as I prime it, the pump will start counting the clock as soon as I shut the valve off here. So here we go. Okay, we're flowing out the tube, so mark right now. Pressure came up to 10 psi. All 8 gallons were in the sprayer. So if I was going to do this again, I would probably buy an extra gallon for each tire and put 9 gallons in them. I think they would have held it. If not, I would have been left with 1 extra gallon that I could use in my truck. So the pressure gauge is now reading about 12 psi. I don't have a flow meter, or I can't tell how many gallons is pumped in yet. The pump is definitely changing tone, and we're seeing the pressure come up somewhere around 15 psi. Maybe bouncing off of getting close to 20, but the needle is just everywhere between 10 psi and 20. I'm going to go ahead and burp it without even turning the pump off. It's still pumping fluid, but we're letting out the gas. There, we're aerating the pump a little bit because of air bubbles in the tank. Now we're back to 10 psi. Total expense, other than the washer fluid, which was around $3 per gallon, the adapter here I think was $7 or $8. So not inexpensive, but not terrible. And then I bought 1 3/8 to garden hose fitting nipple. This splitter deal I've had forever. I use it when I'm watering grass and stuff. And the sprayer, obviously, I've had it as well. So looks like we need a burp again. Obviously the pressure gauge goes to 0 whenever that happens, but I can feel the pulsating on the hose when the air is still coming out. I don't know how good alcohol-based fluids are on diaphragm pumps. If it wears it out, it's a flow jet pump, so I can get parts for it to rebuild the pump, but we're getting close to empty here. And that's it. Dump the air off. That's it. So you can see, I don't know, can't see the clock here, but I'm sure it'll be there. So not a lot of time. I would say if this was all I was focused on, I wasn't filming, probably, I don't know, 15 minutes per tire, 30 minutes total to do this. And prep time is pretty minimal. So anyway, thanks for watching. And I guess I should give a sneak peek or sneak into what the next episode is. So why would you ever want to put wheel spacers and add ballast if so far everything has worked okay? So maybe that's a hint as to what's going to be included on the next episode, but you'll have to wait until then. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.